Chapter 726, College Application. The nonviolent conflict between Lu Shu and Nie Ting had lasted for a long time. Nie Ting wanted him to become a heavenly king, but Lu Shu did not want to. Now, this had nothing to do with the problem of being a heavenly king. Whether Lu Shu became a heavenly king was no longer the main focus of this conflict. What was important was who won in the end. Lu Shu brought Lu Xiaoyu to apply for the species research specialization. Afterwards, they went home. On the way home, Lu Shu was indignant. Why am I an audit student? I have shed blood for the heavenly network. Lu Xiaoyu glanced at him. I can't even become a heavenly king. Don't be unreasonable. No, you're still too young, so you don't understand. You have to bear responsibility as a heavenly king. Once you step out, the entire information network works for you. If I were your age, I would also think that being a heavenly king is cool. I would want to become a heavenly king too, Lu Shu muttered. From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 99. Why did you choose species research? Lu Xiaoyu asked with a dark expression on her face. And all three choices were for species research? There are too many things in this world that we still don't understand. Don't you think that it is very meaningful to research on those strange creatures? It would be boring if all you did was research on how you have evolved. I heard that you do not have to fight as a researcher, explained Lu Shu. Actually, you just don't want to fight, right? Lu Xiaoyu said, that's why you would choose such a specialization. Other people all chose combat and investigation. Some people chose command as well. Who would choose such a civilian job during the magically rich era? Lu Shu, don't you feel ashamed? You're wrong. I fight when I have to fight. I even got rid of that Satan. So what? Lu Shu defended himself. To be honest, Lu Shu had fought too many fights. He had grown weary of war. He wanted to properly enjoy his college life. Species research did not sound like it had anything to do with battles. Was it not just sitting in a laboratory and dissecting small animals? It did not seem like a stressful job. Students had 7 days to submit their college applications. Students from Yuzhou, Xiazhou and Shanzhou came to submit their applications one after another. After everyone had submitted, the college would officially announce the allocation to specializations. Those who had to be relocated would be relocated, and those who were supposed to start school would start school. To be honest, this was definitely more strict than the National College Entrance Examination, NCE 1. If you were allocated to a specialization that you did not like, you could still retake the course. But there was no such thing in the Cultivation College. Everyone was forced to study the specialization that they had been allocated to. Lu Shu suddenly remembered that he did not take the examination. What if Nie Ting allocated him to combat or investigation? Others could be allocated according to their marks, but Lu Shu had no marks. Chang Qiuqiao even called Lu Shu to ask what specialization he was planning to take. He was from Yuzhou as well. He definitely wanted to take the same specialization as Lu Shu. But when Lu Shu said that he was planning to specialize in species research, Chang Qiuqiao was silent for a very long time. Everyone was perturbed as they waited the 7 long days. In these 7 days, the Daoyuan class made up for their regrets. At first, when everyone saw ordinary students submitting their college applications without them, they felt dejected. It was as if they were missing a part of their lives. But now, it was different. Everyone was discussing the specializations they had applied for. They also expressed their opinions about the specializations. To everyone, they would definitely learn about combat tactics and how to kill people in combat. Students would learn about assassinations and infiltrations. As for cultivation organizations' relations and security, they would learn about foreign relations within the realm of cultivation. As for species research, everyone thought that it was almost the same as archaeology. It was definitely not a popular choice. In the magically rich area, a group of egotistical teenagers had gained abilities like that of main characters in cartoons and animations. Who would not want to fight battles and instead research on species? People had been repressed and had aspired for such abilities during the magically scarce era. When people watched wuxia 1 movies, they would always imagine themselves holding swords and walking on walls. Reality never allowed this to happen. But when these dreams turned into reality, most people would yearn for such abilities. This had nothing to do with whether it would be easy to find a job. After all, there would definitely be jobs for them. It was just that it was very hard to like a specialization like species research. Thus, very few people applied for this specialization. It was slightly different from archaeology. At least people who studied archaeology would be seen as scholars. But in the current discussion, everyone saw species research as a civilian job and looked down upon it. It was as if people who applied for this specialization were afraid of battles. This was like in many companies, where the salespeople looked down upon the logistics team. As Lu Xiaoyu scrolled through the Golden Foundation forum, she sat in the courtyard and sulked. It's all your fault for choosing a specialization like that. After Little Fury found out what specialization they had applied for, it was very happy. When Xiaoyu saw this, she grew even more angry. Xiaoyu had always liked fighting. Especially after the military training and the Lopner remains, she had been acknowledged for her strong combat abilities and awareness. She was one of the few female leaders. Seeing the comments now, she could not bear this humiliation. Someone even took out an old paper from science and jeered at it. The paper said that a group had used magnetic resonance imaging to scan a dog's brain. They found out that the left brain processed language. But this year, one of the researchers realized that people lay down while dogs crawled. Thus, the left and right brain had been reversed. People commented and sighed that this would not do. They reminded students who specialized in species research to not make this kind of mistake. Don't care about how others see you. Lu Shu said, we have to learn how to. The chicken soup has gone bad. Don't drink it. Lu Xiaoyu did not try to get along with Lu Shu. We've eaten tomato noodles with egg for 1 week. There's no use talking about other things. Little Fury looked at the fiery conflict between the two of them. It put on its small backpack and tried to slip out. Lu Shu stared at it. Go back and do your homework. From Little Fury, distress, plus 166. Go out and play. So you won't go out anymore if he doesn't allow you to? Lu Xiaoyu asked. Lu Shu was confused. Little Fury took out its small notebook and wrote on it. Come, let's harm each other. You dare to change your tone, but you don't dare to go out and play? Since when did you dare to speak to me with that kind of tone? Lu Shu's expression darkened. But when the application results were released, no one thought that some people would secretly apply for technique research. This specification quickly became popular. Chapter 727, Results Announcement. To everyone else, techniques were the factor that restricted the rate of progress of training. If there were no outstanding contributions, there would be no techniques either. In the heavenly network now, only geniuses like Chao Qingxi could break through and advance to Class B. Although she was still a beginner Class B, she had made up for the heavenly network's lack of high combat power. As for peak Class Cs like Zhong Yutong and Yu Mingyu, who were consolidating their Class C status, could make up the foundation of the middle classes. Thus, the heavenly network was no longer in a rush. They focused more on the overall improvement of quality, rather than blindly speeding up the process. Their tactics would eventually change. When they were short of manpower, they would relax the conditions for outstanding contributions and allow those who dared to exert themselves to have a head start. These people would be the first to eat crabs. They deserved the benefits that they obtained. On the other hand, the people behind would find it more difficult. Thus, many people secretly applied for the technique research specialization. They wanted to see whether the restriction on techniques would be lifted if they took up this specialization. After all, they were doing research on techniques. If they did not know what techniques were, how could they conduct research on them? The list of admitted candidates had been published. Everyone could call the college and check their status. Lu Shu was worried that Nie Ting would not allow him to specialize in species research. But his application was successfully approved. Lu Shu could not wrap his head around this. That can't be right. Would Nie Ting be so kind as to give me a logistics role? Lu Shu had thought that it was fine even if he did not receive the magical stones. He was a boss in the heavenly network. He still had thousands of magical stones on hand. There was no need to be so serious about it. But if he was humiliated again, Lu Shu would teach Nie Ting how it felt to be humiliated. He brought Lu Xiaoyu to settle the admission procedures. This was very simple as well. Following that was a class meeting. The Luotian Cultivation College was very big. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu walked around to find the species research classroom. They slowly walked along the corridors. The corridors were lined with pictures. Some had sacrificed themselves, while others had made great achievements and were still alive. Lu Shu suddenly saw Lu Xiao's photo. His smile in the photo was very bright, as if he had just eaten a bowl of black bean sauce noodles. Long time no see, brother. Lu Shu calmly smiled. Is he Lu Xiao, the one who saved your life? Lu Xiaoyu asked. Lu Xiao's name and life story was written underneath the picture. All the pictures along the corridor were the same. If you carefully looked at all the pictures, all the Luotian Cultivation College students would feel the weight that the heavenly network had placed on them. This was a rugged path lined with blood and belief. It was full of thorns and bones of the dead. Back then, Lu Shu had brought Lu Xiaoyu to Lu Xiao's funeral. He wanted to see whether Lu Xiao's soul was still around. If it was, he wanted to use his ability to control the 7 instincts. Perhaps there was still a thin thread of hope. But this was a very risky choice. After all, if he could not revive Lu Xiao even with his control of the 7 instincts, Lu Xiao's soul would not be able to undergo reincarnation. Lu Xiaoyu looked at Lu Xiao's picture. Suddenly, she said, if something like that happens again, I will protect you too. What are you talking about? Don't watch so many television dramas. It's not good for your brain. Lu Shu said, let's go. Within seconds, Lu Shu suddenly saw a picture and was dumbfounded. It was a dark and hazy silhouette, but the words underneath made Lu Shu gasp in shock. The 9th Heavenly King, during the fight at the Collection of Gods, he defeated Takashima Tairatsu along with Lu Xiao and survived the life-threatening situation. Lu Shu looked at this picture, dumbfounded. To be honest, he did not expect to see this here. The 9th Heavenly King was him, right? Although he would never be willing to become the 9th Heavenly King, the place was reserved for him. The 9th Heavenly King would become the most mysterious presence in the heavenly network. A few students who had reported to school also walked along the corridor. Suddenly, someone gasped in shock. So we do have a 9th Heavenly King. Earlier, when I saw that Heavenly King Nalan had been promoted, I thought that I had read the information wrongly. Why is there a 10th Heavenly King when we don't even have a 9th? Earlier on the Golden Foundation forum, people were still discussing who had killed Takashima Tairatsu. Back then, many said that near the fortress, there was the sound of Dao from when Takashima Tairatsu had advanced to Class A. I didn't expect that our Heavenly King had killed him. But I don't know how this 9th Heavenly King looks like, someone gasped in shock. He's probably an old man who started training during the magically scarce period. If not, how would he be able to defeat Takashima Tairatsu? How nice it would be if we had that kind of power.
Ha! Ha! Ha!
Stop dreaming. How can such an expert be as young as us? Lu Xiaoyu softly said, let's go and find our classroom. Lu Shu paused. There's no hurry. I want to listen to their discussion. From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 199. How embarrassing. Let's go. Lu Xiaoyu pulled Lu Shu away. She felt that this shameless person would be able to stand by this photo and eavesdrop for 3 full days. The Luotian Cultivation College was like a maze. When they passed by the training ground, they realized that it was as big as a soccer court. The facilities looked as if they had come from a science fiction movie. One look and they did not know how to use them. It's here, said Lu Xiaoyu. Classroom A129. When Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu entered, they realized that the people in the classroom were all people they were familiar with. Furthermore, there were very few people. Chao Qingxi, Chang Qiuqiao, Chen Zuan. Lu Shu was shocked. He did not expect these people to gather in the same classroom. Lu Shu felt that something was not right. Chen Zuan, weren't you in the cultivation college in the capital? Why are you here? Chen Zuan had a look of despair. I don't know. My second master brought me here. He even changed the specializations that I applied for. But Chao Qingxi, you are a Class B, why are you here? Lu Shu was bewildered. I won't learn anything from combat and investigation, Chao Qingxi coldly explained. Suddenly, a middle-aged man wearing glasses slowly walked into the classroom. He was wearing a red jersey. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. He could sense waves of energy from him. He seemed to be a mid-class C. The middle-aged man smiled. Allow me to introduce myself. I am your form teacher. I will conduct research on species with all of you during your 4 years of study. When Lu Shu thought about the people in this class, he had an unpleasant premonition. He suddenly asked, what species will we focus our research on? Are we doing research on samples? Where are the samples? Who will provide the samples? Luo Nan laughed. You will bring your own samples. We will research what you all bring to class. Lu Shu was furious. Was there any other specialization that was as free and easy as this? Huh? Is this the case in other schools too? Lu Shu asked. It's like this in Luotian Cultivation College, said Luo Nan with a smile.
Ha!
Yeah, Ting. So I still have to hunt down and kill transformed creatures, right? So that is why everyone in this class is so strong. From the beginning, Nia Ting never had the intention to let Lu Shu live in peace. Chapter 728, All have been killed. Species research, which seemed like a civilian job at first, suddenly turned into a combat-type specialization. Lu Shu had wanted to play for a few years and enjoy his time in university. He wanted to sit in the laboratory and dissect new species. If there was nothing to do, he could wear his white lab coat and boast on his timeline. It would make him seem very mighty. Why do the researchers themselves have to catch their own specimens? Lu Shu was furious. Is it legal to change the contents of this course just like that? I have no say in this. Luo Nan said. The higher-ups changed the outline. Furthermore, the examinations for this specialization are more strict. If you do not pass your research report, everyone in this specialization will not be able to obtain upgraded techniques. Of course, this has its benefits. If you submit your research reports to the higher-ups, they can be considered as outstanding contributions. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. If he was the only one who did not pass the examination and obtain techniques, then so be it. He did not need techniques from the heavenly network either. But Nia Ting was cruel. He gathered people that Lu Shu knew. This made him apprehensive. The war between him and Nia Ting would never end. Chen Zuan was about to burst into tears. This was crazy. Lu Shu suddenly asked, do species research specialization students in other colleges have to catch their own specimens like us? Of course not. Luo Nan smiled. They will do research on the specimens you have captured. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Chen Zuan was dumbstruck. Chang Qiuqiao was speechless. Why did they have to catch specimens for the 7 major cultivation colleges? Not only did they not have to obtain their own specimens, Lu Shu and the rest had to do it for them. The name of this specialization is wrong. Lu Shu's expression was dark. We should be called Lei Fengwen Team who catches wild mutated creatures to save humanity. What a long name. Luo Nan was shocked. Stop talking. My head hurts. Lu Shu roared. Chao Qingxi calmly observed the situation like a passerby. When Lu Xiaoyu saw that Lu Shu was angry, she even wanted to take out snacks to eat. Chen Zuan and Chang Qiuqiao looked down. Lu Shu dared to shout at the teacher, but they did not. Everyone had gone to Europe together. They knew how fierce and tough Lu Shu was. When they walked past the photo of the 9th Heavenly King along the corridor, they could not think of anyone who could fill in the position other than Lu Shu. Those who knew the truth could guess this easily. Those who did not know the truth would never be able to guess who it was. As for Chen Zuan, Chang Qiuqiao, and Chao Qingxi, their confidentiality level had increased. They knew what they could tell others and what they could not. Suddenly, people came to the door of the classroom. It was as if a group of people wanted to surround and observe the species research specialization. People started to discuss. Why do they have so few people? I heard from my elder cousin that the Luzhou Cultivation College has a lot of people in the species research specialization. Who knows? Maybe the people here are more passionate, thus fewer people applied for civilian jobs. When Chen Zuan heard this, he was about to cry. He had wanted to get into a relationship after entering the cultivation college. But now, he was in a specialization that was looked down upon. How would he be able to find a girl? He wrote a post on his timeline. My relatives, where are you? Hurry up and arrange a marriage for me. I'm afraid that I can't do it by myself. Lu Shu immediately liked his post. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 166. Luo Nan closed the door and smiled. A refrigerator van will come every Friday afternoon to collect specimens and send them to the other 6 major cultivation colleges. Do your best, everyone. The people outside the classroom crowded together and moved back and forth. They looked at the people in the classroom as if they were looking at pandas. Lu Shu raised his eyebrows. There's no restriction on what kind of species we need, right? There are no requirements that you have to fulfill, replied Luo Nan. Okay. We have very few people in our class, so we will end our class meeting for today. Everyone, please go and prepare. After all, my performance depends on your research as well. Lu Shu sat there with a complex expression on his face. Chang Qiuqiao poked him. Brother Shu, what should we do? There should be a few mutated animals in Luo City, right? What should we catch first? Lu Xiaoyu put her arms on the table and supported her chin with her hands. It was as if she was watching a movie. Lu Shu's expression suddenly turned to one of grief and indignation. All the mutated creatures in Luo City have been killed. When the problem of mutated creatures first occurred, he got Lu Xiaoyu and Little Fury to exterminate all the mutated creatures. Anthony had done an inspection underground. A Class B metahuman had snuffed out even all the eggs in the ground. The mice army had already cleaned up the sewers and the surface. There were many scorpions, but Zhong Yutong and his team had taken away the corpses. Lu Shu was still thinking that he could inject some chemicals into the scorpions and sell them. But Zhong Yutong and his team were just too fast. Thinking about it, Zhong Yutong was probably worried that he would take the dead scorpions now to make up for the numbers. All have been killed? How is that possible? Chang Qiuqiao was dumbfounded. There are still mutated creatures in the provincial capital that occasionally attack people. Last night, my mom told me that a giant centipede had entered her neighbor's home. It was frightening. Luckily, the people from the Heavenly Network rushed over. There is still the problem of mice. That is the most serious one. Indeed, there are no more mutated creatures in Luo City, Chao Qingxi calmly confirmed. She had wanted to kill some mutated creatures, but when she went to the streets, they were nowhere to be found. Earlier, she did not understand what exactly had happened. Now that Lu Shu had made a conclusion so clearly, she knew that it had something to do with him. Chao Qingxi did not compare herself with others. She strove to surpass herself. Comparison was a lowly interest. Surpassing yourself was a more mighty goal. But even Chao Qingxi, who stood firm on her beliefs, found it difficult to be calm and collected when facing Lu Shu. The members of the Heavenly Network realized that Luo City was much safer than other cities. But wealthy men who feared for their lives had their eye on this security. They had tried to recruit secret practitioners, but to speak the truth, many of these secret practitioners were pathetically weak. Their quality was worrying. The secret practitioner would often be at a loss when they encountered these mutated creatures. They had only dealt with humans. They had no experience fighting creatures. Thus, these wealthy men turned their attention elsewhere. They had to find the safest place to live. Chapter 729, Scary Species Research Specialization Students. Under the circumstances that the system of currency did not collapse during the magically rich era, money was a strong driving force. After some analysis by a think tank, they found out that Luo City had never had any problems with mice. There was a scorpion infestation, but that had been settled too. The underground pipes were very clean. Luo City was one of the safest places in the country. Slowly, many people came to survey and analyze the area. The results were shocking. Other than running into the same cute squirrel in their dreams, Luo City was indeed very safe. But squirrels were not mice. If it were a mouse, everyone would be scared whether a massive king mouse was among the mice army. But if it was a squirrel, then there was no need to be worried. During his high school days, Chen Zuan occasionally wanted to distance himself from Principal Nia. To him, training was a very cozy thing. He would be able to live in a beautiful house on a tall mountain, with a high concentration of magical energy and be isolated from the rest of the world. When he obtained the strongest skill, he would punish that Principal Nia, who brought him so much suffering. He would be invincible. He would have two pretty ladies in his beautiful house on the mountain to portray his peaceful mentality. One of them would be called Qing Feng, and the other would be called Mingyu. But now, they had to catch their own samples to conduct research on. Lu Shu thought. Nie Ting was not planning on resolving their conflict amicably. Should he go to the Changbai Mountains and steal the items Nie Ting had been hiding to conduct research on? Lu Shu could not stand this humiliation. Luo Nan, who had been quietly sitting by the side and listening to their discussion, suddenly said, "I have a good suggestion to help everyone pass." Luo Nan had his own worries that he could not say aloud. When he saw the name list of students, he was annoyed. Information on all the students was kept under a high level of security. Even he, the teacher, could not access the information. The identities of these students were very different from the rest. Just now, the students did not care much about him. Especially Chao Qingxi, who seemed to have some murderous intent hidden behind her calm expression. This female student looked just like a murderer. He did not know how many people she had killed. Thus, even as a teacher in the Luoshan Cultivation College, Luo Nan did not have much confidence speaking now. Lu Shu and Chen Zuan turned to look at Luo Nan. What suggestion? You may not have known this, but before I came here, I worked in species research. I worked in a very special place. Luo Nan smiled. Kunlun Mountains. After the dawn of the magical era, the Heavenly Network built a testing base there. In terms of the origins of civilization, that place is sacred and mysterious. Furthermore, we have not explored many places there. There are many bases there. It is not uncommon to see Class C's lead teams there, explained Luo Nan. Lu Shu thought about it. So Luo Nan had been researching on species in the past. No wonder he was able to become a teacher in the cultivation college. Specialists were definitely needed in this area. If you asked Chen Bailey, a Class A, he may not be able to explain how the mice had mutated. But Luo Nan may be able to. Furthermore, it was normal for the Heavenly Network to probe the Kunlun Mountains. That place was called the ancestor of mountains and the first sacred mountain. There were many myths surrounding the mountain. During the dawn of the magically rich era, the Heavenly Network wanted to obtain more information. They also wanted to obtain the training resources that were likely to be found there. Surveying the Kunlun Mountains would be their first choice. Luo Nan continued. But 3 months ago, we suddenly lost contact with the base at Death Valley. For your information, there was a Class C expert stationed there. Under unknown circumstances, we deployed a team to check what was going on there. But they discovered that there was no one in the base. There were no traces of a battle either. Oh yes. Death Valley has another name, the Gate to Hell. Under these circumstances, we also encountered many attacks from mutated creatures while surveying the area. Thus, we had no choice but to retreat. That's why I was redeployed as a teacher. Luo Nan smiled. I have a lot of feelings for that place. I really want to know what exactly happened there. If everyone is willing to follow me there and obtain some precious samples, we may be able to shake the entire realm of cultivation. Passing your exams will no longer be an issue. Chen Zuan, Cheng Qiuqiao and the rest pondered deeply. They seemed willing. They were all young people. Who did not want to be famous? If they were able to capture some rare samples, they would be well known within the Heavenly Network. Chen Zuan could even imagine himself being surrounded by pretty ladies. But they looked at Lu Shu. After all, Luo Nan had said that even Class Cs had disappeared without a trace. Both Chen Zuan and Cheng Qiuqiao were Class Cs. Even if they were consolidating their Class C status, if they wanted to return home safely, they would have to depend on Lu Shu, Chao Qingxi and Lu Xiaoyu. Technically, Lu Xiaoyu was a Class C as well. But for some reason, everyone did not see her as just an ordinary Class C. I'm not going, said Lu Shu. From Luo Nan's distress, plus 999. Lu Shu smiled and said to Lu Xiaoyu, come. Let's go home. Lu Xiaoyu obediently followed behind Lu Shu. Before she walked out, she even glanced at Luo Nan. Lu Shu opened the door and saw many people surrounding the door, hoping to catch a glimpse of what was happening in the classroom. Many of them did not recognize Lu Shu. After all, back then when Lu Shu was moving about in the Lopner remains, he was hidden by the bronze armor. As for the local Luo City students who had come to see who would choose such a specialization in this era, they could not believe their eyes when they saw a demon king walk out. They quietly pulled on the shirt of the student beside them, hinting at them that they should not say anything. But the students did not understand and laughed at them. But Lu Xiaoyu followed behind. Lu Shu did not go for the military training, but Lu Xiaoyu did. Everyone knew Lu Shu's name, but they had never seen him before. But it was different for Lu Xiaoyu. Back then, at the military training, Lu Xiaoyu had almost scared the boys to death. When everyone saw Lu Xiaoyu, they were shocked. Why would Lu Xiaoyu apply for this specialization? Everyone had the impression that Lu Xiaoyu was the most irritable person they knew. Lu Shun did not care about them and walked OU. When everyone saw Lu Xiaoyu obediently following Lu Shu, they were shocked beyond belief. Wait, do you remember the brother that Lu Xiaoyu had mentioned back then at the military training? Chao Xingxai also walked out expressionlessly. Chen Zuan and Cheng Qiuqiao followed behind. The students who had wanted to observe the students specializing in species research were all speechless. Chao Xingxai. She was one of the few Daoyuan class students who had advanced to Class B. She was a genius. But she had also applied for this specialization. Chapter 730, The Specialization with the Greatest Strength. In the cultivation college, where battles were advocated, civilian specializations like species research were looked down upon. But when all the people in this specialization were people that they looked up to, everyone suddenly thought, was this specialization that mystical? Chao Qingxi, Chang Qiuqiao, and Chen Zuan. These were the Class A geniuses that had participated in the military training. Everyone knew this. Needless to say, Class A aptitude geniuses were very strong. People looked up to these people in class, the same way that they would look up to misers. There was no need to explain anything further about Lu Xiaoyu. During the military training, everyone had witnessed how strong she was. Suddenly, someone said, "Back then, I scored very high marks. But I was rejected from the species research specialization." He did not dare to say this in the past, as back then everyone had looked down on species research. Since he had been allocated elsewhere, he no longer had to endure the disdain from others. To be honest, he even rejoiced. Someone suddenly asked, "How much did you score?" "I scored 379. Someone gasped in shock. The examination that they had taken awarded up to 450 marks. But as the examination was meant for everyone, the questions were relatively easier. Furthermore, those in the Heavenly Network could score higher marks because of their outstanding achievements and quality. Even so, 379 out of 450 was already a very good mark. But he had been rejected from species research? No wonder this specialization is so scary. Someone gasped. This isn't a good-for-nothing specialization. This is a team of elites. That can't be right either. Someone said, "My brother is in the Capital Cultivation College. The species research specialization, there is nothing like this. First, there are more people there. Furthermore, those who applied for that specialization would definitely not be rejected. So the species research specialization at Luo City Cultivation College is very odd. It isn't an overstatement to say that they are the specialization with the greatest combined strength." Lu Shu sat in the courtyard and waited. After a while, Chen Zuan, Chao Qingxi and the rest came over. Just after Lu Shu stepped out of the classroom, he sent everyone a message. "Gather at my house. I have something to discuss." Thus, Chao Qingxi, Chen Zuan and Cheng Qiuqiao followed Lu Shu out of the classroom, leaving Luo Nan alone and dumbfounded. To be honest, although Lu Shu was not often serious, once he got serious, his actions would have a massive impact. At least the secret practitioners in Luo City regarded the Venerable as a legend. Now, Yu Mingyu was looking after the black market. But Lu Shu and Li Xiao may be more effective than Yu Mingyu in speaking to them. Everyone respected and feared Yu Mingyu as he represented the Heavenly Network. But they had been won over by the Venerable and the Lord. "Brother Shu, what is it?" "I still have to find a place to stay," said Chen Zuan. He had been brought here by Chen Bailey. He had not made any preparations in Luo City. Kunlun Mountains. The ancestor of mountains. The first sacred mountain. These were all the names for the same place. They had nothing to do with modern times. These names had existed since a long time ago in history. Chao Qingxi remained quiet and did not speak. She stood by herself by the vegetable garden, thinking about something. She was not the type to express her opinions easily. She would remain silent and act. Chen Zuan sat on a chair and smiled. "Brother Shu, so what do you mean?" "This is a place that Nie Ting wants me to go to," said Lu Shu calmly. A strange specialization had suddenly appeared. Luo Nan stated speaking about such a far-off place just after meeting them. Furthermore, considering the Heavenly Network stance regarding the empty Kunlun Mountains and Nie Ting's personality, this was a path that had been created for him to take. But he did not take this path. They were just waiting for Lu Shu to go there? Lu Shu continued. I won't go into the details, but that place is definitely very dangerous. I would go there, but we are now a team. If one benefits, we all benefit. But if one suffers, all of us suffer. I want to hear your opinions. Brother Shu. Chang Qiuqiao scratched his head. What are we going to do there? Lu Shu pondered over it. He had told Luo Nan that he would not go, but on the way back, he would not help but think that there was probably something important in the Kunlun Mountains. Not only did Nie Ting humiliate him, he wanted him to work his socks off. Could he come up with a plan to humiliate Nie Ting? Thinking about this, Lu Shu was fired up. But to speak the truth, the level of danger in the Kunlun Mountains was probably manageable for a Class B, or from another angle, Nie Ting had formed this team to ensure his safety. There was indeed a conflict between them, but Lu Shu knew that Nie Ting would not mess around with people's lives. It was also because of their conflict that they understood each other. This kind of conflict was like an internal quarrel, not a physical fight. Lu Shu said with determination, "We are going to humiliate people." Chen Zuan was dumbfounded. Brother Shu, can you really say that kind of thing with so much confidence? Lu Shu was silent. He suddenly slapped the back of Chen Zuan's head. That's why I said, don't casually hit on girls like that. Chen Zuan was furious. He was about to flip a table. Are you still not over that? The next day, with Chao Qingxi in the lead, Chen Zuan, Chang Qiuqiao and Lu Xiaoyu suddenly told Luo Nan that they had decided to go to the Kunlun Mountains to collect specimens. Luo Nan was elated. Yesterday, he was still disappointed that his guidance had failed. But today, things had changed for the better. But on one condition. Chen Zuan put up one finger. That all our expenses on this trip will be reimbursed. Also, we want rations every day. Sure, no problem. Luo Nan smiled and agreed. Although we have very few people in our specialization, we have a lot of funds. At the same time, Lu Shu was already on a train headed to the Kunlun Mountains. In the end, he was still worried about their safety. Thus, he decided to go and inspect the area around the Kunlun Mountains. He wanted to hear some legends from the locals, as well as any changes to the Kunlun Mountains recently. Lu Shu liked to do things at a steady pace. He would do his tasks to the best of his abilities. He had done this for so many years. It did not make sense to give up on his own safety just to humiliate Nie Ting. If the situation was unfavorable, he would bring Chen Zuan and the rest back to Luo City in one piece.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens to tell us things that we better.